If you feel like you aren't attracting the right people, I guarantee it's because you have not been intentional about using identities inside of your content, your messaging, or your copy. And you only have one avatar inside of your business instead of two. So if you want to fix those issues, well, keep listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. So we are recording this episode. This is actually the first episode with our brand new sign in the background. Oh yeah. So if you're watching in video, check that thing out. I love that new sign. Well, the reason why I was bringing up where we're recording this podcast is because we're recording this in the middle of like a wind storm. The wind is crazy right now. At least in Southern California. I'm not sure how wide it goes, but the power's out. And we are recording this episode using nothing but a Jackery. And if you guys don't know what a Jackery is, you should definitely go check them out. Basically, it's almost like a solar generator. And it's just like big battery pack that does hook up to a solar panel, but you can charge anything with it. Your fridges, obviously a podcast studio. We use them on shoots whenever we need power in the middle of nowhere. You can use them when you're building stuff in the middle of nowhere where you need power for your drills and whatnot. They're like the best thing ever. And I bought them just in case power ever went out at our house for long periods of time to like power our fridges and stuff like that. And never thought we would be using them to power a podcast, but you know what? Here we are. And I think it is appropriate to let you know that Jackery is a sponsor. No, just kidding. It did sound like a commercial though. But anyways, I just think it's so cool that we can like be in my garage in our studio, recording in the middle of a power outage because of some of the stuff that we now have at our fingertips. And I think that's a really cool thing. And it's kind of what the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast is all about, is about doing things differently and using technology now to give us opportunities we didn't have before. So I don't know. I thought it was really cool and I'm really excited about it. But what we wanted to talk about today is avatars and identities. And we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into messaging. And these are elements that I think really go overlooked for a long period of time, or have gone overlooked for a long period of time by a lot of people. And I think if you're a Video 4X member or you've heard me talk about messaging for a while, then you're pretty well aware of what an industry norm is. An industry norm is something that society or your industry or your niche thinks is normal, but is really the one thing that's causing people to suffer or to stay stuck or get the result that they don't want. But because it's an industry norm, it's the way things have been done for a long period of time, people just continue doing it. And I think not looking at identity when it comes to messaging and content is an industry norm. It's just something that people haven't done. Number two is avatars. I think the way that the industry has looked at avatars, the way marketing has been taught, especially in the online space when it comes to avatars, has really led people down a path of staying stuck, blending in, having very generalized messaging. And I want to fix that. And inside the Video 4X program, we do fix that. Inside of a lot of our stuff, we do fix that. But I'm well aware that a lot of listeners are not yet in our programs or may not have heard this before. And sometimes it's very good to hear certain things multiple times so that it really starts to stick in and really starts to resonate. And so what we're going to talk about first are avatars. Now, I think the way that avatars have been taught, or the way they've been broadcasted, or the way that people talk about them, it leads to very generalized communication. And one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs have, and you yourself might be having this problem, is that it seems like no one's resonating with your message. Like, great, you're putting all the information out there. You're saying what you feel are all the right things, but it doesn't feel like people actually truly get what you are saying. Or you're attracting the wrong people. You're like, this is not my audience. Like, why do I always attract people that don't have any money? Or why do I attract people that always have these excuses? Or why can't I attract people that have the same values as me? Or why is this just not resonating with anyone? That's probably because you have an issue with your avatar and you're not taking into consideration the things that we're going to talk about today. And when we start to talk very generalized, we start to blend in, and we can't be generalized anymore because the online space is getting even more crowded. It's getting, there's new experts coming into the space each and every day. And when we look at COVID brought a huge amount of awareness to online content and online education, which means that there's a lot more customers, but it also is bringing a lot more competitors. There's also people that lost their jobs that are looking for ways to make money. There's just more and more and more competition. And when you stay generalized with your messaging, you just start to blend in and no one resonates with you. So let's dive into avatars. Now, here's the way I'm willing to bet. I am willing to bet right now, like if someone was in front of me, if you were in front of me, I would literally put money on this with you and make a bet that when you've been taught how to create an avatar or that you need an avatar and how to find your avatar, you have been taught that you need to know what their name is. You need to know what their likes are, what their dislikes. Do they have a family or not? How much money do they make? And you start creating, and people will tell you to start craft this avatar so you know who you're communicating with. And although that can help, it is the one thing that causes you to blend in with messaging, like one of the main things. And the reason why is because when you start to just go through this exercise of who is it that you want to speak to, what you start to do is you start to create a person in your head. You start to say, okay, the person's name is Jan, and she has blonde hair, and she's a working professional, and she has 2 kids, and she makes $100,000 a year, or whatever it is. You start to create that person in your head, like, that's who I want to attract. That is who I want in my audience. And that is the person that I'm going to envision. And that's what I would say 90% of people do, and that's what 90% of people teach when you're coming up with avatars, something along those lines. Here's the problem with that. When you do that, you're literally making up a fake person. You're making up an illusion of a person. So let me ask you, if you have this illusion of an avatar, this illusion of a person, how are you supposed to know the thoughts that are in their head? How are you supposed to know specifically what they are doing to try to fix that problem? How do you know specifically how they're feeling? You can't. Because the second you try to get into what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're doing, you start making that up as well. And what starts to happen is people will start having copy and messaging and content that says, do you feel stressed and overwhelmed? And it's like, yeah, I mean, I could take that line and put it on 90% of people's sales page and it's still going to make sense. Like I can take that line, do you feel stressed and overwhelmed? And I can put that on the sales page of a weight loss coach. I could put that on a therapist sales page. I can put that on a business coach's sales page. I can put that on any consultant's sales page. I can put that on someone who works with parents' sales page, and it still makes sense. And the reason why we came up with such a general line is because we're like, okay, Jane with blonde hair who has 2 kids and makes $100,000 a year. She wants to get out of her corporate job. What is she feeling? Well, obviously she feels stressed, right? So you're just making it up. You don't know the deeper layers. You don't know the true feelings, the true things she's doing. You don't really know that because, again, you're making it up. And usually when you're going to make those things up, you just get very generalized. And when you get very generalized, you start to blend in with everyone else. And we're going to talk about this concept of knowing versus knowledge. I'll get to that in a second. But at first, before we do that, I want to talk about how do we fix that problem. And it's a very easy solution. It's almost so easy that when you hear it, you're going to be like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Or why is no one teaching this? Well, we are teaching it. And the solution to that problem, well, let's just put it this way. I would say the majority of everyone listening, if you are a course creator or a program creator, or even a service provider, you are helping someone accomplish something that you once had to go through yourself. And what I mean by that is I teach messaging and content. I had to go through how to learn how to do content and messaging. I had a content problem. I didn't know what to really do and how to connect and all that stuff. And I went through that transformation myself, and now I help other people go through that transformation. You most likely listening went through some kind of transformation, and you're now helping other people go through that same transformation. Usually, in most cases. Which means a version of you pre or before the transformation is your avatar. Like, you are your own avatar. The version of yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, before that transformation is the avatar. You don't need to make up a fake person. Just look at yourself. And the reason why we want to do that is because you know exactly what you were doing. You know exactly what you were trying. You know exactly, specifically, how you're feeling. What were the thoughts in your head? What actions were you taking? What did it feel like? What did you want? What were those desires? You know everything on a deep level. For me, for example, when I knew I could help people and I was putting all my content out there and it wasn't resonating, it wasn't hitting, I felt like I wanted to climb to the top of the mountain and just scream, I can help you. Why aren't you listening? That's how I literally wanted to feel. I also felt like, and I would have these thoughts saying to the universe, I know I can help people. Why aren't you letting me help people? And if I was to use that in my copy and use that in my messaging, guess what? That's a very specific thing. You can't take that and put that on someone else's sales page and have it be relevant still. And even if you did, they would never use that language because I'm getting really deep. I'm getting very specific on the thoughts and the feelings. And the only reason I know that is because it's what I thought and what I felt. I was my avatar. Now, I know there are some of you who have never gone through specifically the transformation that you are helping people go through, and that is still okay. So what you would do is just look at your best student or the client that you love working with the most, and you look at what are their thoughts, what were their feelings, what were their stuff. But majority of you guys, you will be your own avatar. Now, there is a difference between knowledge and knowing. And we talk about this a lot. The way I like to look at it is if someone had a course on how to ride a bike and one person went to school and got a degree on how to ride a bike but never actually rode the bike, that person has the knowledge and they'll be teaching and they'll be communicating from the knowledge. And to me, the person who creates a fake avatar that's an illusion of a person is basically communicating from the knowledge point of view. However, if there was someone who didn't go to college or even did go to college, but then got on the bike and rode the bike and mastered riding the bike, and then they created a course, well, guess what? That person will be able to not only will they have a better course because they understand it on a deeper level, but they will be able to communicate your fears, your concerns, the things you might be trying that aren't working, because they actually went through that experience and they know it. And if you have gone through the transformation that you are now helping people with, then you need to tap into yourself because that's coming from a place of knowing. You're communicating to your avatar from a place of knowing. And it allows you to go deeper, get more specific. And most people just never do that. And then they wonder why their messaging is all jacked up. It's very generalized. It's not really hitting or resonating. No one's really paying attention. But that's part one of what we want to do is we want to start looking at who is that avatar. Now, we're going to take this a step further here in a second. That's just one half of it. Okay, so what we call this inside our program is the struggling avatar. Okay, so the struggling avatar, this is the person that you can help. The person that's struggling that you know you can help, the struggling avatar. What was the version of yourself before your transformation? What were the thoughts and all of that good stuff? Struggling avatar. Now, what we also want to do, and this is another mistake people make, is they only stay with that one avatar. They only talk about the one avatar that they created that was an illusion. And although that's great because you're now going to be communicating to that person on a deeper level, that's only half the battle. So what happens to most people is they mess up half the battle. And they're not even aware there's a whole nother side to this that I'm going to reveal to you in a second. But they never even realize there's a whole nother side to this when it comes to your avatars. So what happens to most unheard entrepreneurs, by the way, struggling avatar for me is the unheard entrepreneur, if you haven't realized that yet. But what happens to most unheard entrepreneurs is they create an illusion of an avatar, and that's who they're communicating to, is this illusion. And then they stop there because they think, I just need to know how to communicate to them. Again, that's only half the battle. The other half of the battle is, yeah, you need to have that struggling avatar identity. You need to connect them on deep level, but you also need to create a second avatar. And most people never do this. The second avatar is who they want to become. And guess what? That is who you are now after the transformation. How does it feel? What did you do? What does it feel like? What are your thoughts now? And if you guys listen to my messaging, you pay attention to the podcast, you want to know why I tell so many stories about myself and I use myself as the example a lot of times, is because I literally looking at myself as the struggling avatar and the future-paced hero. For example, when we talked to Mel, Abraham, about building wealth and a lot of that stuff, I talked about how I bought a house and we made certain amount of money on the house because of the value of the home going up. It wasn't that I just wanted to talk about the value of my house going up. It's that I wanted to show myself as that future-paced hero and relate to the things that people want. And I do that type of stuff all the time. I'm very transparent in my life and in my business, not because I want to be transparent to try to build connection, but it's because I want to be able to relate on the deepest level possible. I want to show you, yeah, I have kids. And if you have kids too, guess what? There's going to be a subconscious connection there. I'm literally showing you my struggles, talking about my struggles, talking about when I was in debt, all of that stuff. Because I want to relate to that struggling avatar. I want to relate to people based on who I am and my experiences in life. And so when we talk about the future-paced hero, for me, that's the new generation entrepreneur. The new generation entrepreneur is the person who stands out because they stand for something. They're the person who doesn't rely on a ton of educational content. So when you hear me talk and you experience my messaging ecosystem, I'll talk about that in a second, but when you experience my messaging ecosystem, you will literally see me paint two different identities. We have the unheard entrepreneur, who I was before the struggle, so I know everything they're going through. And then I know the future-paced hero, who is who I currently am. You'll hear both of those. And what starts to happen when I get very specific with the unheard entrepreneur, and I get very specific on here's what they're doing, here's what they're thinking, here's how they're feeling, and you start to feel and relate to the same exact things, you start to take on the identity of the unheard entrepreneur. So if I say something like the unheard entrepreneur focuses 70% or more of their content on strictly educational, they also feel like they want to get to the top of the mountain, scream because no one hears their content, even though they know they can help. They are the person who speaks very generalized, so they relate to no one. They're the type of person who's very consistent, but still doesn't get the results. Now, when I start to talk like that, and you did any of those things I just listed, you're going to go like, oh my God, he's saying exactly what I'm doing. I am that unheard entrepreneur. So as people start to experience my brand and I do more of that, they start to experience my messaging ecosystem, whether they hear me on this podcast, someone else's podcast, on a webinar, and a piece of content, and they start to associate themselves and recognize I'm doing and thinking and feeling everything that the unheard entrepreneur thinks, feels, and does. Well, guess what? They start to take on that identity. Then when I paint the picture of the future-paced hero, which is what they want to become, which is where I am, well, guess what? It creates a desire to want to become that new avatar. So I'm creating a demand gap based off of avatars and identity. And that's the secret here, is a lot of this is based on identity. And most people miss that. Identity is absolutely huge. It's a game changer. It's one of the biggest things that you should be focusing on when it comes to avatars, when it comes to messaging. And I'll tell you guys right now, one of the reasons why you have the wrong audience is because you have not incorporated identity into your messaging ecosystem or your content. Like literally, if you want to attract parent entrepreneurs, all you have to do is create a piece of content that says entrepreneurship should be taught to kids. Almost every single entrepreneur that's a parent is probably going to believe that and support that message. You have the identity of entrepreneur in there. You have the kids, which plays into the identity of the parent. By not incorporating identity into the titles, you are not attracting the specific person that you want. Now, to show you guys this in action, show you how important identity is when it comes to these two avatars. And that's essentially what we're doing is we're creating avatars, but we're creating avatar identities, meaning that I'm literally creating the identity called the unheard entrepreneur that people will grab onto, and the new generation entrepreneur identity. Those are literally identities that I'm creating in my brand and getting people to self-recognize you are the unheard entrepreneur and you are not the new generation entrepreneur, but you can be, because that's where I am and I can help you do it. But this is how powerful identity is. So what I want you guys to do is look at who do you follow? And obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably follow some of my stuff. But look at who you follow. And I want you to think about, why do you follow those people? Now, there's going to be some obvious answers like, when it comes to me, you probably think like, I love his work, right? Like I probably explain things in ways that you haven't heard before. I probably shifted your perspective in ways that you haven't experienced before. You probably follow other experts because of the knowledge, but let's just take the knowledge out of the equation, because usually for most people, they're not following someone because you have the best tutorials. Like, you're probably not following me because I have the best tutorials or the best steps inside of my content. Maybe, but normally not. So let's just say there's two Brandons that are teaching the exact same thing, right? And there's me, who I am currently now, on the left, and there's another one on the right. I guarantee you, if we took the knowledge out of it, you're going to say things like, I follow Brandon because he's a parent, might be one reason. I love his perspective on parenting. It might be something like, I love that he relates to me or has gone through the exact same things I have. It might be things like, he's vulnerable. He has integrity. He's compassionate. Those are all things that have nothing to do with messaging, right? He really cares for people. Those are all things that have nothing to do with messaging. But I'm willing to bet if we look at your identities and your core values that you have, they are likely to be aligned with some of the things that I just said. Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you're someone who cares about other people as well. Maybe you're compassionate like I am. Maybe you have integrity like I do. Maybe you like being vulnerable and real in your content like I do, right? Again, those have nothing to do with messaging, but everything to do with connection. And if there's that other version of Brandon who's literally teaching the same thing, but he didn't have kids, maybe he was, I don't know why this first comes to my mind, but maybe he's like a big bodybuilder who constantly like working out or something like that, and you're someone who constantly works out, you're probably going to resonate with that person as well. That version of Brandon. Again, they're teaching the exact same thing, but because they're shared identities, you're going to connect more with those people. And so identity is one of the biggest and most powerful things that you guys can incorporate inside of messaging. Now, we are going to do a boot camp, an absolute free boot camp. So I'm going to tell you about it, and we're going to keep going here in a second. But we have a free boot camp that's coming up. And we're going to walk you through, it's a 2-day boot camp. We're going to walk you through how to create your avatar identities, how to start creating them and positioning them, and go through all of that stuff. And we're also going to show you how your content can start to create demand for your offer. So identity and avatars, that's just one element that you need to have effective messaging. There's also something else you need in order to, when you create content, to get people to want what you sell before they know anything is for sale. And so obviously having that demand gap between identities is one way, but there's something else that we have to be doing that we're going to reveal to you in this boot camp. And when you do this, you create this like, oh my God, I have to have it type of demand without people even recognizing that anything's for sale. It's a way that you get to talk about your offer without people realizing you're talking about your offer. So inside this bootcamp, there should be a link around this video. If you go to brandonlucero.com/bootcamp, you can go and find it. So brandonlucero.com/bootcamp, you can go and find it, but it's a 2-day free bootcamp that we have coming up. Now, I want to go back to the whole avatar thing and kind of give a recap again. So again, when we create an avatar, we don't want to create an illusion of an avatar. We want to create a version, look at a version of ourselves before the transformation that we're now helping other people have. That allows us to know the exact thoughts, the exact feelings, the exact things that they're doing. You can't do that when you make it up. Now that's going to be the struggling avatar. On the flip side of that, you want the future-paced hero. This is where you currently are. What are your current thoughts? How do you currently feel? What did you do? What are the steps that you did? What are those things that you can start explaining to people? How do you create that desire? You literally become what people want to become. When I look at James Wedmore, for example, one of the things that he really incorporates into his brand more and more so is like spirituality. And when you start to look at him and his values and identities, what do you think he starts to attract? He starts to attract more of those spiritual people. Just again, to give you guys another example of how powerful this really is. And that's how easy it can be to attract the right people and then to create demand. You just speak to them on the deepest level possible by looking at who you were. Now, if you were not that person, you are not the avatar, just look at the best student, the person you enjoy working with, and ask them those questions. What are those specific things you were thinking and feeling and doing to try to overcome this problem? And you can start using that inside of your messaging. But you definitely need to create those two different identities. And again, to show you how powerful identity is, just look at the people you follow, take their steps, their tutorials, their knowledge out of the equation, and look at why do you follow them? And again, I'm willing to bet you have some of the same values or identities that they have. Now, I want you to think about that for your business. Have you been doing that for your business? What would happen if you did do that for your business? Have you been intentional with having the right identities in there? Maybe you're attracting the wrong audience because you have not been incorporating the right identities into your messaging ecosystem. Maybe you've never been clear on it. Maybe you don't even know what your identities are. That's kind of scary to think about. Maybe you don't even know what your identities are. If you don't know what your identities are, how are you supposed to incorporate them in your brand? No wonder you're not attracting the right people. You've never got clear on the deepest levels possible. So if that is you, or you need help with this, then you better get your butt onto that bootcamp, brandonlucero.com/bootcamp. Now, I don't know when you're listening to this episode. It will go down, I believe, early February sometime in 2021. So you only have a week or two to get in on it. And if you are listening to this episode past that date, we do have a video series coming up called The Content Revolution, which will blow your mind. If you loved what we were talking about today, it's going to blow your freaking mind because we go way deeper on a lot of different topics. That's coming up too. So just look at the links around this video or go over to our Instagram. I am Brandon Lucero, and you'll see all the links there as well. But anyways, hopefully today was super valuable for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Get onto that boot camp and let's start shifting your messaging. And like always, if you guys enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy the topics we're talking about, if you enjoy messaging and entrepreneurship and all the mind stuff that we talk about, go ahead, leave me a review on iTunes. I'd be so grateful for that. And it just really, obviously it helps support the show. It gives us better awareness, but it also really shows me that what we're doing resonates and you enjoy it. So head over there, leave us a review, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.